If you are a federal employee and you're curious about your federal employee retirement benefits, then you'll want to watch this video as I'll be breaking down what those benefits are and the different components that they contain. Welcome back. This is episode 255. According to USA Facts, the federal government employs around 3 million people in the United States, making it the nation's 15th largest employer. Of that 3 million, about 98% of current civilian federal employees are part of the Federal Employees Retirement System, or FERS for short. If you're one of those people and you're wondering how your benefits work, or maybe you accepted the recent deferred resignation offer, then you'll want to continue watching and listening as I break down the various components of the FERS system. But before I get into that, if you don't have a plan for retirement, or maybe your plan needs some updating, then consider signing up for my online retirement planning course, Retirement Readiness Review on Demand. If you don't have a plan or you want to get it updated, I take you through all the steps that you need to learn to put together your plan, whether it's estimating your income in retirement, strategies to minimize taxes, how to invest your money in retirement, how to understand Social Security, Medicare, estate planning, and much more. To sign up, head over to retirewithryan.com/on-demand or click on retirewithryan.com and then courses and retirement readiness review on demand. So what is the Federal Employees Retirement System, or FERS? Well, according to the U.S. Office of Personnel Management's website, the FERS plan provides benefits through 3 different sources for federal employees. That is the basic benefit plan, or the pension plan, Social Security, and the Thrift Savings Plan, or the otherwise known as the TSP. Examples of careers that are part of this system are employees of the federal government, but not limited to the following: law enforcement, such as FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, police officers, other law enforcement personnel, firefighters that are federal firefighters, national security employees such as air traffic controllers, military reserve technicians, security guards, government administration positions such as analysts, human resource specialists, technical professions such as engineers, computer scientists, and then other roles as well. So when are you eligible to retire under the FERS system? Well, typically federal employees are eligible to collect their FERS benefits based on their age and the years of creditable civilian service. The most referred to term is an employee's MRA, which stands for your minimum retirement age. And it is increased 2 months from 55 years of age up to the oldest of 57 years of age, depending on the year that you were born. So starting with any employees born before 1948, that age is 55. And then for anyone born 1948 and later, you're adding 2 months to that. For example, if you were born in 1948, your MRA is 55 and 2 months. And then anyone born in 1970 or later, it becomes 57. Also playing a role in this calculation is your years of creditable civilian service. So you may be eligible to collect a FERS benefit under the following requirements: 62 years of age with 5 years of creditable service, 60 years of age with 20 years of creditable service, at an MRA with 30 years of creditable service, or at your MRA with 10 years of creditable service, commonly known as MRA plus 10. So if you have less than 20 years of creditable service, your benefits will be reduced 5% for each year you are below age 62. So if your MRA is 55 and you have 10 years of service, your benefits will be reduced by 35% permanently. So there is eligibility for federal employees to receive their full benefits sooner under the FERS early retirement conditions. This benefit is available in certain involuntary separation cases and in cases of voluntary separation during a major reorganization or reduction in force. So to be eligible, you must meet the following requirements: be at least 50 years of age with 20 years of creditable service, or at any age with 25 years of creditable service. So how is your basic benefit plan calculated? In calculating your basic benefit plan, your highest 3 average years of salary is calculated. So as cited on the U.S. Office of Personnel Management website, your high 3 is the average pay, that is the highest average 3 years you earn during any 3 consecutive years. And these 3 years are usually your final years of service, as many people are maxing out or topping out in their earnings just before they retire. But it can be an earlier period if your basic pay was higher during that period. Maybe you changed jobs. So your basic pay is the basic salary you earn for your position. And it includes increases to your salary for which retirement reductions are withheld, such as shift rates. It does not include payments for overtimes, bonuses, etc. So if you are under the age of 62 at separation for retirement, or at 62 years or older with less than 20 years of service, 1% of your highest average years of salary is used to calculate your basic benefit. So you get essentially 1% credit for every year that you worked. So let's say, for example, you're 57 years of age and you've had 30 years of service. So you'll get 1% for each year of service. So you'd get 30% of your highest average 3. So if your highest average 3 was 165,000, 165,000 times 0.30% gives you $49,500 annually. That's what your basic benefit would be. So for any employees age 62 or older at separation with 20 or more years of service, the same formula is used. However, use a higher factor for each year of service. So your highest 3 would be multiplied against 1.1% instead of 1. So you're getting an additional amount per year of service. So the same calculation, 30 times 1.1 would be the amount that you'd be using rather than times 1%. So how do special provisions come into play? Well, special provisions have been created for federal jobs that have an increased risk to employees during their life of the career, both mentally and physically. So these professions include air traffic controllers, federal firefighters, law enforcement officers, Capitol Police, Supreme Court police, or nuclear material couriers. So due to the higher risk nature of this line of work, they receive an increased retirement benefit as follows. So they receive 1.7% for their highest average 3 years of salary multiplied times years of service, which do not exceed 20 years, plus 1% for every year that exceeds 20 years. So, for example, let's say John is 57, he's ready to retire. He's been an air traffic controller for 30 years. So he would get 1.7% times 20 for those first 20 years, and then he'd receive 1% for every year above 20 years. So in his case, 1% times 10 years. So let's say his average salary was $165,000 times 0.017 times 20 years. So on that initial calculation, he'd get $56,000 for those 20 years at 1.7%. And then his remaining 10 years, he'd get $16,550. So his total basic benefit would be $72,600. So are benefits considered taxable income? Well, unfortunately, yes. These benefits are taxed as ordinary income, subject to your personal tax rate. So to not be left with a surprise tax bill at the end of the year, once you start collecting these basic benefits, you want to make sure that you're withholding appropriate federal tax from your payments. If you live in a state with state income tax, you also want to make sure that you're withholding appropriate state income tax. You could increase your withholding, is probably best, so that you, at the end of the year, you don't end up owing a lot of money. Both federal tax and state tax can be withheld from these benefits, or you could also pay quarterly estimated taxes as well. It's really up to you. Or you could withhold the money from other income sources if you have other income that you're getting when you begin collecting these benefits. So what about the FERS supplement? Well, how does that work? Well, the second portion of FERS is the supplement, And it serves as a bridge to help people get benefits before they're eligible to receive Social Security. So being that the minimum retirement age for federal employees is between 55 and 57, it's clear that federal employees, let's say that retire at 55, would have a 5-year wait until they could collect Social Security, because the earliest age at which you can collect your own Social Security benefit is age 62. So to alleviate some of the financial stress of employees who are retiring at their full retirement age of 57, to help them bridge the gap to their normal retirement age from Social Security, FERS allows for this supplemental benefit that federal employees can collect from minimum retirement age from 55 to 57, depending on when you were born. And it'll last up until the last month in which the retiree becomes age 62, or the last day of the month before the first month in which the retiree could, upon application, be entitled to Social Security benefits. So how is this FERS supplement calculated? Well, the formula works as the following. It takes the number of years of covered service divided by 40 times your estimated Social Security benefit at age 62. So the number of years of service is divided by 40 no matter how long an employee has covered service. So let's say, for an example, Tim is 57 years of age. He just retired from the FERS system after working 40 years of creditable service. And after reviewing his Social Security statement, it shows that his full Social Security benefit, or his age 62 Social Security benefit, was $2,500. So you would then take 30 divided by 40, because he had 30 years of creditable service, times 2,500, and that gives a number of $1,875. So if Tim did retire at 57, he'd be eligible for this $1,875 per month up until he reaches age 62. So that's a significant benefit for a lot of federal employees if they have their whole career under the federal system and they do want to retire at their minimum retirement age and they want to bridge the gap to collecting Social Security. This is an additional income source that you can receive up until you reach the age of 62, but at that point it would stop. It doesn't then require you to collect Social Security. You could then wait until your full retirement age of 67, or even wait until 70, but you'd have to give up that FERS benefit. It would stop. That FERS supplemental benefit, it would stop at that point. So will your benefits receive cost of living adjustments? Yes. Your annual benefit will get a cost of living adjustment if you are age 62 or older, and if you retired under the special provisions for air traffic controllers, law enforcement personnel, or firefighters. So as cited in the U.S. Office of Personnel Management for Federal Employees Retirement System, or FERS special benefits, if the increase in the Consumer Price Index is 2% or less, the cost of living adjustment is equal to the Consumer Price Index increase. If the CPI increase is more than 2%, but not more than 3%, the cost of living adjustment is 2%. And then if the CPI increase is more than 3%, the adjustment is 1% less the CPI increase. And the new amount is rounded down to the next whole dollar. So for your basic benefit, you're going to get a cost of living adjustment during your whole lifetime, presumably, and that would be very beneficial to you as somebody who's retired, having that cost of living adjustment to be able to have your income keep pace with inflation. So what about the second component, or you could say the third component to the federal employees retirement system, and that is the Thrift Savings Plan, or the TSP. So this is a retirement savings plan, an investment plan for federal employees and uniformed service members. It's very similar to a 401k for private sector employees. It allows participants to save a portion of their income through payroll deductions and invest in different investments. There's 5 different individual funds. There's some stock funds and some bond funds. So you can pick your own funds, or you can select up to 11 life cycle funds that essentially are pre-mixed portfolios for you, designed to be catered to your retirement date. And then you could potentially receive matching contributions from your agency or service. And the TSP offers tax benefits as far as tax-deferred growth. You could put into the traditional TSP, which gives you a tax deduction on the money when it goes in. There's also a Roth option where you don't get a tax deduction, but then when the money comes out, it will be tax-free to you. So you have those two choices, and the same 401k limits that apply, the maximum amount that you can put in, and you have that ability to fund this through payroll contributions. So definitely, it's a great way to save money while you're working. And when you do separate from service, one thing to keep in mind is that if you are separating between 55 and 59 and a half, any money that you withdraw from the TSP plan will not be subject to an early withdrawal penalty. So you can separate between 55 and 59 and a half and not pay an early withdrawal penalty on that money. However, if you roll it over to an IRA outside of the TSP plan, that IRA would then subject you to a 10% penalty if you weren't yet 59 and a half. So definitely, if you're separating between 55 and 59 and a half, probably a good idea to either leave your money in the TSP plan or leave a good amount of your money behind, at least enough that you could withdraw to get you to age 59 and a half. So that way you're not going to be subject to the 10% penalty if you need access to that money before age 59 and a half. So what about survivor benefits under the FERS system? As cited on the U.S. Office of Policy and Management website, if a former employee who dies with at least 10 years of creditable service, 5 years of which must be creditable civilian service, is survived by a spouse who was married to the deceased at time of his or her separation from the federal civilian services, and who was married to the deceased for at least 9 months, or the former employee's death was accidental, or there was a child born of marriage to the former employee, the spouse may be eligible for a monthly survivor benefit. And the benefits begin on the date the deceased former employee would have been eligible for an unreduced annuity or pension payment, unless the survivor chooses to have it begin at a lower rate on the day after the employee's death. The former employee would have been eligible for an unreduced annuity with a minimum of 10 years of creditable service and less than 20 years of service at age 62, or 20 or more years of service at 60, or 30 years of service or more, meeting his or her minimum retirement age. So lastly, the final component to the federal employees retirement system is Social Security. So just like any private sector employee, the same rules apply for any federal employee as far as how their Social Security benefits work. As I mentioned earlier, you can collect benefits as early as age 62, and you can wait all the way up until 70. You'll want to investigate what your benefits are and make decisions to collect based on your health, based on your life expectancy, based off your income needs, and also your marital status. If you're married, you'll want to consider how you collecting your benefits might impact your spouse's benefits, and also if your spouse were to survive you, how you collecting your benefits might impact what's known as a spousal survivor benefit. So I hope that gives you some more understanding on how the FERS retirement system works. If you need help understanding your FERS retirement benefits and you want help planning your retirement, feel free to reach out to me by heading over to retirewithryan.com and clicking on free assessment. If you have a listener question that you want to have considered for a future episode, you may also leave it by going to retirewithryan.com and clicking on ask a question. Have a great week, and I look forward to talking with you next Tuesday. Take care.